don't know if that's working. Yes, it is. I think we're at a really interesting time of understanding the push and pull between energy efficiency and health, and I think into the future we will understand, particularly around ventilation. It's going to be an interesting area, but I think by that time we will really have these two areas won't be viewed as separate as they are right now. We're seeing sustainability and health is different. I think those are going to come together in the future.
Great. Other ideas, David?
Just to, I guess, elaborate, the more we move away from spending 90% of our time indoors, and we can cycle to work and so on, that all helps. So that's the primary objective, I think, to find a way that we can lessen the effect of increasing urbanisation. But given that that's likely to continue to at least some degree, the more we can incorporate the benefits of nature and understand why it is that spending time in nature is good for us, and how then we can incorporate that in the building fabric. Obviously, I'm biased towards timber. I don't think timber's a panacea for all these areas. Having plants, for example, the Lend-Lease Living Breathing Wall is a great example of that. So to find ways that we can incorporate those benefits of, and we talked about the smells of being being next to the beach while we're spending time. Those sorts of areas, I think, will help greatly.
Great. We might go to our first question. Jeff had his hand up first.
Jeff Harrison from Orcon. It's really hard to have one question for such a very diverse group of people, so I'm going to cheat and I'm going to have two, if that's okay. The first one is to Sue. I mean, I just love that whole proposition of saying, working into your 80s and things like this. And I think if you love what you do, you don't necessarily want to have the death knell of 60, 62, whatever coming on board. But unfortunately, that seems to be the way things are structured in an awful lot of companies at the moment, that you get to a certain point and then, when you get to your sort of mid-60s or even earlier, they say, well, that's it, bye-bye, off you go, kind of thing like that. So do you think companies are changing, and how that will enable people to work on longer? That's the first question. The second one, I'm really interested in the work with Laura and so on, but a lot of the stuff that you were doing is, I know it's the early days, and you started looking at things like standard air conditioning systems, tying a couple of different things together. One of the things that I think is really interesting in buildings now is this issue of mixed mode. People like issues of variability. They like to be able to go and have the wind on their face and this, that, and the other, and change and things like this. And I'd be interested in just getting your thoughts on how Laura and so on could be used around mixed mode.
Okay, let's start with
That's great. But Jeff, you get one live question and you get one warm-up question while I'm talking. I agree. This whole idea, we're fine with people in their 60s in the workplace, but we just don't see older people. The practical thing is that just must change. And the reason I really love that book, The 100-Year Life, is that it's a fantastic public policy primer. I mean, governments are grappling with the challenge of a smaller, diminishing workforce supporting a larger number of people, so all of us are going to have to carry our weight longer. And the book really does have a wonderful series of prescriptions at a policy level, as well as an individual level of what can I do to be more viable in the long term.
With regards to the your question with mixed mode, certainly that's where Laura can help, because what we're doing is some of these experiments will relate to underfloor air conditioning and the personalized system whereby you can actually directly, just like what we've got in cars and in planes and things like that. So that's one area. But another exercise that we are carrying out using Laura is indoor and outdoor. So it's certainly combining what we've been talking about, that there will be times when you would like to work outside. So what are the parameters? Now, bearing in mind that the climate change is happening. So we cannot just say that, yes, outdoors will be the panacea or it will be the way to go. That's where we are linking in, if you like, the futuristic clothing. And that is where we see the future. And again, those clothing exercises can be really verified and carried out using Laura.
Next question. Right up the back.
Lee from the City of Melton. Maybe a question for David, just for the discussion about timber. We did a commercial timber building about 5 years ago now, and there's been some good discussion over the years at this conference about timber construction, and again yesterday from the chap from the UK. just interested in how the supply chain's going with making timber easier to obtain and easier to construct.
Certainly we're seeing improvements, we're seeing some investment. I won't do too much of an ad, but there is the only locally available CLT, cross-laminated timber, is currently available in Nelson in New Zealand. Xlam produced that. They're now developing a plant in Wodonga on the Victorian side of the Murray River. We also have Lend-Lease have a final stage production facility for CLT, and Strong Build have a similar facility out in Norwest. So we are certainly seeing quite a high level of investment in the timber industry. Those are just a couple of examples. There are more, but time prohibits a more detailed explanation. But yes, your question is correct. There has been limited availability previously, but we're starting to see a significant ramping up of that.
Thank you. Next question. A bit quiet this morning. Oh, there's a couple.
Jamie Wallace from Sustainability Victoria. One of the issues we're attempting to tackle is the older existing office buildings and trying to improve their performance. We've seen in the premium end of the market what good performance looks like and what healthy, productive workspaces look like. Getting owners of these older buildings to invest in the performance of their buildings is extremely difficult, and one of the missing ingredients that I seem to notice is that there's no tenant demand for this. I'm wondering if the panel has any thoughts on how we accelerate the sort of tenant demand within the lower grade office building stock for improved performance and better, sort of more comfortable office spaces.
Thank you. Yeah, Kathryn, great.
I was going to say how we utilise the space within them. So moving towards a lot more co-working models and shared space, which will target the lower end of the market because it's cheaper, is probably the best way to do that. But yeah, it's finding, I mean, a lot of those older buildings are held onto so that they can knock it down and redevelop it. So yeah, so I guess you've got both ends there.
Just to add to that, the cost of some of these buildings to upgrade, particularly the air conditioning, is a major sort of impost, if you like. And one of the areas that we are finding with some research, that with the older buildings, if you don't have an ability to upgrade the capacity, you can include ceiling fans, which hasn't been tried out, but research shows that you can actually get away meaning that you'll achieve good comfort levels using ceiling fans and air conditioning.
Samantha.
Yeah, I might just add to that as well. Hi, Jamie. I worked on some of this with City of Perth as well, and it's such a hard area, and we can't forget about the existing building stock, and the owners are so fragmented, and I think we need really focused communication reaching that target, because it's so hard to target us first off. But I think as well the business case has to be a lot more financially focused, and in the past we've been using carbon and energy efficiency as these metrics, and it's just not enough an imperative for people. So with the Curtin project we quantified sick leave, for example, over all the buildings, and that definitely got the property team's attention when they could actually see the business case from a different angle. So I just think getting those financial metrics in place, and it's different when you're talking about tenancy and looking more at value of the space, but I think we've got to get that financial business case really, really strong, and looking at the people factor, not just the energy factor.
Great insights. We have another question.
Ashman from Dexus. I had a question for Dr. Hall. You had a slide showing the results from a survey of how healthy people perceived a space to be once it was refitted for Green Star Interiors. Did you have any evidence to show how much healthier it actually was?
Yeah, so we did some indoor environment quality measures as well, so we showed a lift in performance with that. I find that with the IEQ measures, people still aren't always across that, or the market's not quite at an understanding then, so a lot of people don't actually value that data yet. So I find starting with the people and the perception is a really important first step, and you can collect that data afterwards. Some other things with Curtin, we showed that people are doing a very sedentary, and we were able to just give a snapshot of the people's perception as a starting point, and then you can build on after that. But I always emphasise don't ignore people's perception of the space, because perception for them becomes reality, and it's really important to actually understand a person's perception as a starting point.